The big reasons that B2B marketing fails is what we're going to start with, because most of the people I consult with, most of the companies I deal with start by saying, look, our marketing's not working. And they either immediately talk about the fact they have a marketing assistant or a marketing manager who is not doing their job properly, or the fact that they have tried loads of different techniques and none of it's working. The first one is when we've got people who aren't strategic marketers making marketing decisions. This is a really common one because especially in like smaller or mid-sized marketing companies, you find that there isn't a senior strategic marketer. So you have either the CEO or a sales manager, a sales director, a junior marketer making decisions on the marketing. The problem with this is that it will always be coming from a place of lack of awareness of what works in marketing and what the right thing to do strategically will be. So let's say that you speak to a marketing partner and they're like, oh yeah, this is what you need, this is how it works. You're more likely to have the wool pulled over your eyes or be taken down a route that's not necessarily exactly what you need because you haven't been educated and you don't understand that area. So it's very easy. And I see a lot of companies go down the road of trying loads and loads of different techniques in their marketing because they've really engaged with a salesperson from a particular marketing agency. And so if you're not a marketer by trade, it's a specific set of skills to be able to make marketing decisions and decide what's the right call, you can really go down the wrong path. Now, one of the biggest things I talk about in my podcast, The B2B Marketing Gap, is the fact that junior marketers are typically very unsupported when there's no head of marketing. If you've got an engineering business, you've got a junior marketing person, and you're expecting the results from them, or if you yourself are a junior marketer and you're like, well, why aren't I getting results? Why aren't I strategic? I don't know how to write a marketing plan. That's this void between the board and what the board wants us to achieve and the junior person being unsupported. Now, there's two ways to fill that gap. You either hire someone senior or you hire an external marketing consultant to plug that gap. I don't see marketing working in any company where there isn't either senior outsourced marketing resource or in-house senior marketing, because without a strategic marketer, it's simply almost impossible unless you have a CEO who happens to be particularly talented in growth and marketing. Is extremely difficult. So the other one is when agencies are brought in. So say you've hired a marketing partner and you're looking to them for results, and actually you're like, well, why aren't we getting results? Why are we not seeing, anything coming from the work that you're doing as an agency? We've hired you to help us with our marketing. And they're over there going, hang on a minute, we're a marketing agency. We specialize in web development or digital creative or content. And we need you to give us a strategy. And you're going to need to be the people who pull together what we've done into a wider marketing strategy to get results. And so no one's wrong. In the first scenario, the junior marketer's not wrong because they do not have the skills in order to be strategic. The company director's not wrong for wanting results from the marketing person. They are wrong in blaming the junior marketing person for not getting results on their own without any budget, any support, or at least a big enough budget to make an impact. And the same with the agency client issue. When you've got a client who wants results from an agency who is not necessarily enlightened to marketing and doesn't understand it in much detail, they're going to expect more from an agency than what the agency will be able to or is prepared to give, because they're like, hey, that's not the deal. We provide a service to you and it's up to you to make that happen. And I think that what happens is that corporate directors are oversimplifying in their minds what the strategic marketing process is. It's kind of like, well, we've paid for Google adverts, so why are we not getting sales? We've spent £3,000 or £30,000 the last 6 months on this. We should be getting sales and it's their fault. Whereas the reality is that there are so many more facets to marketing, and also having too many techniques going on at once and not seeing that actually we need to, if we have limited resources, we need to focus on one or two really key activities and really go for it and make sure that on all fronts we are covering what needs to be covered in order to get results. Now, there are also unrealistic expectations. So I often speak to companies where they're like, I just don't understand why we're not getting results from our marketing team or from our marketing partners. I just don't believe in marketing. I don't see how it can work. We're sticking with cold outreach because that's what works for us. And I'm like, well, yeah, cold outreach does get results, but it gets far lower success than effective marketing. You just haven't seen effective marketing yet. So for example, with cold outreach, perhaps you get a 2% return on outbound calls to appointment, yet maybe 1 in 5 of those appointments is of very high quality. Maybe 2 don't even show up, and maybe 2 are just not really an ideal fit. That's because we're going out and asking for people to want to work with us. Whereas when we create brands that are built around, hey, you guys, here's how we can solve your problems better than our competitors, better than the other options available to you, that's when we start to create demand among the people that are then attracted to us and want to work with us. And so you start to get that inbound effect. Now, the most crucial element here is that lack of strategy. So if you are tactics first, if in your marketing discussions with either your fellow directors, your marketing team members, your agencies is purely, okay, I think we should be on YouTube, or, oh, I think we should try some emails, or should we be advertising on Google, or should we have a new website, or should we have a rebrand? A lot of the questions I get through my inbox as a consultant, they start with, hey, Jade, we're wondering if we need to have a new lead generation strategy, or we want to try out Google AdWords for 6 months, or we want to do a rebrand, or we've just done a rebrand and it's given us nothing. There's no point to it. It was a waste of money. Best one is, what is the best marketing technique for our business? Now, without a strategy, you're not going to know. First of all, I'm going to share with you about how people who buy from us has changed. And I'm quite happy to share uncomfortable truths. I know that a lot of companies don't like this and don't want things to change and want to carry on the way that they were in 2008 and potentially earlier. But buyers have changed, and that includes your buyers. People do not need to rely anymore purely on the business development person to enlighten them on the challenge that they're facing. When you only have to think about how you buy things today in a work context to know this. So just a few statistics to share with you, and this comes from the Gartner Future of Sales 2025 report, which is really worth a read. They did interviews with more than 500 business-to-business decision makers. So this is not consumer products, this is senior board level decision makers. 17% of their purchasing time, so if you think of the whole purchasing time that I spend when I'm making a decision on something, 17% of the time was spent with business development people and sales reps. That could be an initial consultation on the phone, followed by a sales meeting, followed by them sharing the proposal, and then final conversations before they make their decision. 17% of that time is with sales reps. Now, what's super interesting, however, is that usually there'll be multiple vendors involved in a decision for a senior person. They'll speak to 3 or 4 of you guys, so you and 3 of your competitors potentially. Best case, they'll speak to 1 other, unless you have that incredible relationship where they're just going straight to you. Now, what's really interesting is that only 5% for any one given salesperson is allocated. That means that your company, your salesperson is only getting 5% of the time that your buyer is spending making a decision. This is dramatically different than how most business-to-business companies are setting up their sales and marketing strategies. They still have marketing as the supporting aid, creating brochures, hosting trade show booths, sending out the odd newsletter when they can get around to it, posting on social media that no one's seeing. It has to change because marketing is now the driver of the sales pipeline, getting quality into that sales pipeline for a very knowledgeable business development person to close and to add value. Now, when you look at the fact that 27% of the buyer's time, so more than a quarter of their time, is spent independently researching online, you then quickly realize that when they're researching their problem, they're researching partners, they're in forums asking other people who have the same job as them, who would you recommend? How have you solved this problem? Now, if that sounds dramatic and like, oh, that wouldn't happen within my audience. I literally had a conversation yesterday on some brand insight work for a client. And the very senior person on the board said, when I have a problem, I'm in a forum online and I go there and I ask people who do my job, hey guys, what have you found to be the best solution to this problem I'm having? And can you recommend suppliers? And so that falls within that. Now, it's also a non-linear process. When we think about how people buy, there's no longer this thing of like marketing attracts attention and then sales takes over and nurtures, because before there was no other choice. I remember if I was buying 2009, if I was buying products while I was in a corporate role, I would do a quick Google search of the companies I needed, or I'd have their phone number and I'd have to ring them and say, hi, can you tell me how this works? Can you tell me how that works? Because the content just didn't really exist on the internet. There was no YouTube videos explaining to me these complex issues. There were no podcasts, but now people do not need to speak to people in order to get solutions to their problems. They can find everything they need online. And so if your brand is the one that is adding value and providing value, I'm going to share ways that this can be done without it being terrifying, because if you're a business that hasn't done much of the brand basics, which we'll get to in a minute, it can feel quite terrifying, but there are very simple ways to start to create demand among your target audience by selecting one or two tactics that you then become very consistent with. And so with it being non-linear, there's no sort of formal handover anymore. So marketing needs to be involved in the whole process, creating the demand, attracting the right people, nurturing them into being a good quality, ready to engage with sales. You know, it's pretty dated now to be like, oh, someone's had a look at our website and looked at a report, like call them, they must be interested. You can do it if you want to, but it's not a very good use of a salesperson's time. We want their calendar full of highly qualified, ready to buy people. And so if marketing can lighten the load of nurturing and checking out the buying signals and getting people primed and ready and further along the sales pipeline so that sales have got meetings in the diary, then that's going to be better. So marketing and sales need to be involved the whole way through. An interesting stat that I want to share with you is that 44% of millennials today prefer not to speak to a business development person during their during their buying process. Now, I get it. Like, there's a lot of companies where you will need to speak to someone. They're not saying they won't. They're saying they like it. Let's say I go online, I'm going to research a problem. I've found everything I need. If I can buy it without dealing with anybody, I'm quite happy to do that. It's not necessarily saying that there isn't a role for business development. It's just saying there's an increasing trend that almost half of 26 to 41-year-olds, as we stand now in today's digital world, would prefer not to speak to someone. Now, all we have to do is consider how things are going to keep evolving and how Gen Z, who are now aged 26 and below, in the next decade, they're going to start to get more senior. I wonder how that stat will go. What we really want to do is avoid shiny object syndrome, get towards getting the basics right and getting a realistic plan of action that we can commit to that's actually going to get results for our marketing. So we want to, if we're a B2B company and we're struggling to know what to do next, I would really encourage you to just bring it back to basics and focus on customer success. If you're the owner of a business, are you really and truly aware of how much value you're adding to your customers? Are they truly succeeding in their role as a result of what you're providing with them to them? Are there things you could be doing better? How can you enhance your offering in line with your customers? If there's a company I consult who are like, we're not going to do anything else other than one thing, I would say, speak to your customers. What is it they want? What do they care about? How can you better set yourselves up to deliver on that? Get closer to them, because the best way to grow as a business is to get more work from existing people. Finding out more about those customers is just so crucial, and building our offering around A, where our strengths lie, and B, what our customers want, and just making it our absolute mission to provide customer success. Now that goes across all of the business, because if you align your business with customer success, it really quickly becomes apparent that every department is so important and crucial in this. If there's frustrations they have with your onboarding strategy, or the paperwork that you send them, or the finance processes, or how the service is delivered, that all impacts customer success. It's all these small things that make things frustrating for them. Getting closer to those customers is going to be super important for you. Let's talk about those basics. First of all, what's the vision for the company? What's the mission and the business goals? Vision, put simply, is where do we envisage ourselves? What do we literally want ourselves to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Who do we want to be? That could be financial based, for example. So it's really needs to be lofty enough that it excites us, but not too big that it's terrifying and unachievable. So the vision needs to be measurable. It needs to be about where we will get to and how we're going to, what we want to look like in, like, for example, my personal vision might be in 2 years, I want to be up to like, with my running, I want to be like an athletic, conditioned performance. I want to be having the diet that I want. I want to have had, my business achieve a certain, it's that vision. Where do we see ourselves? And then the mission is, what's the constant? Why are we existing? Like my mission as a consultant is to fill the gap between board directors and junior marketers with, by helping them to develop sustainable growth plans. That won't ever change. That's my mission. I want to help as many businesses to connect their marketing with the overall business strategy. That's why I exist. It's not a vision. It's just why I'm here. And if I ever employed someone, if they were working on something, it'd be like, hey, like, is that in line with our mission? You're doing this piece of work for someone and it's not exactly what they wanted and it's not in line with our mission. It's not actually helping them connect those two things. So that's really like off from what we want to be doing. And so then the business goals, like simply the way I would simply describe business strategy is like, what things stand in our way of achieving the vision and upholding the mission? What are the big meaty things that we need to do in order to get to where we're going collectively as a company? This is where marketing comes in and needs to drive that. How can we center that around the customer, what the customer wants? So the marketing objectives will differ based on what the vision for a company is and what the business goals are. So what are the big challenges? There might be a company where they they're getting lots of price sensitive, low quality inquiries, and they want to be trusted with bigger budget, more profitable jobs. And so what can they do? Marketing's objectives would be centered around that challenge. Another company might be the best kept secret you've ever known. They're fantastic at what they do, but no one knows about them. Another company might be falling down in delivery. They've got the best sales message in the world, really effective marketing department, and they're getting the work in, but something's not connecting. They're losing work at the other end because the operations team are failing on delivering the promise. Or something as simple as, when you look at psychology, if there's a customer care element, there's just not floating your ideal customer's boat. I've had examples where there were companies whose accounts process was so horrible. It was like, oh, we're cutting off your service because you're a day overdue on your invoice. Sales and marketing might not know that, and operations don't know it either. But all of a sudden, the client's like, oh, that's a real pain. I would appreciate if you'd given us a heads up that was going to happen, because it's a real headache for us. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, when they've got the energy to change suppliers, they do. And it was the small things like that that led to it. Getting that customer insight can really help with that. We want to be setting marketing objectives that are directly linked with how we're going to achieve the vision. It's not underneath, it's next to. The marketing strategy and customer strategy needs to be next to. We also want to focus on business scorecard measurements. So a lot of marketers produce reports that are like, they'll give it to the directors. If you're a company director yourself, or if you're a marketer, you can relate to this. When you have your marketing meetings with agencies or with marketers, it's like, hey, here's the engagements that we got. Here's the number of comments. Here's the email opens. And you kind of sat there like, what does this even mean? Those sort of statistics should be staying within the marketing function as key performance indicators, i.e. they indicate that we're on a path in order toward performance, but they're not the performance. So a real art is to have reports relevant to each different person in the business. So the directors are going to want to see, okay, what's the health of the pipeline? How many open opportunities do we have? What's the average order value looking like? How much do we predict will close this quarter? How's the conversion rate doing? What's the quality of the inquiries? Those top level pipeline results. So really getting those set up correctly. One of the least spoken about things is brand positioning. I talk about this a lot. No, it's not talked about enough. It can be the difference between a company failing in its marketing and doing really, really well. Brand positioning is being able to clearly articulate, here is why you should choose to work with us, not the other options available to you. Here's the frustrations you've been feeling in the past while working with companies like our own. And here's why we would be the partner to break that trend and give you the success that you've been hoping for. Most companies, they talk about, here's where we're based, here's how many people in our team, here's how many years we've been going, and here's some examples of our projects. All hygiene factors. All of your competitors will be showing that too. And so it's easy to see why people end up going, okay, who's going to be the most cost effective? And you end up in this price war. And like, I've worked with just dozens and dozens of companies over the last 7 years since I set up my consultancy business to bring brand positioning to life for their business through insights. And I'm going to share an example of why brand positioning is super important in a second. Creative, a lot of businesses go through a rebrand, and I do that rebrand like this because they kind of have a re-logo, new colors. And now this is not the fault of the design agency that you've brought in. The design agency will say to you, what is your central message? What is your brand strategy? And you go, I don't know. Can you help me with that? And they go, okay, we're creative designers. We'll put something together. We'll run a workshop with you. We'll ask you about what you stand for and come up with some values. And that's all fine. This is not like to attack creative agencies, but unfortunately they're put into positions of doing things that they're like, well, this is not our specialty. What you want from creative is that you take the brand positioning, which is this core message of here's why you would work with us, not the other options available. And you then wrap that with creative that brings it to life to show a concept. So the colors, the images, whilst it's important they look great, it's more about how do we really quickly, really awesomely get this message across. It's very robust and it's very practical and it's very not fluffy. The last thing that needs to be focused on before we move forward, obviously there's way more to marketing than this, and the brand positioning piece includes deep insight work with your clients. B2B marketing companies have the luxury that they don't typically have thousands and thousands and thousands of customers, which means they can talk to them. A great marketer should know its end customer inside out. We should be talking to them. We need to find out what they care about, because the fundamentals of business are you set up a company because you want to meet someone's needs. And so we have to understand those needs and draw that into our positioning and messaging. The last element to mention here about the basics of getting your marketing right is to have a well-functioning CRM system with all the data organized, segmented, in the right place, ready to be communicated with. Because I speak to companies who've been going, let's say 10 years. Let's say I work with a lot of companies in the property and construction sector, and they are like, we want new leads, we want new leads. And I'm like, okay, so how many new leads? Like, oh, we want to get 30 inquiries in the next 6 months or something. They want to do Google advertise. And I'm like, okay, before we go into lead generation techniques, which is very expensive today compared to what it used to be, what have you done to like mine the contacts you already have to get closer to those people? Let's say you've got 600 contacts. What have you been doing over the last 10 years to engage with them? Yes, when you first started, if you had 40 contacts, you could meet them for coffee regularly. You never missed a project. You never missed an opportunity. But now that you have 600, you're going around seeing jobs and projects that have gone ahead going, oh, we could have done that. That's so frustrating. We could have done that, but we missed that opportunity. Why did we miss that opportunity? And I'm saying to people, it's because you're not keeping in contact with these people. You're not regularly adding value to their life. And that is where marketing can add so much to the mix and drive that forward, so that we're constantly nurturing people. Now, people, it's only like 85% of the time someone is not in the market for what you sell. So how can we keep them warm to us whilst they're not in the market? And this is why it's really dangerous to say, oh, well, we've done email marketing for 3 months and we've got no leads at all. The buying cycle is 6 to 12 months. So what we can't do is try a marketing technique, see that it didn't work, and then bin it off. We have to have that strategy in place with those marketing objectives, really decide what's going to be the best techniques for us and stick with them for a very long time and be very consistent and have that confidence to keep going. Having that CRM and data strategy is vital, because when you start to then also attract in new opportunities, it's not just this churn of opportunities. You're constantly engaging and nurturing with all of the contacts that you have, and you understand where they are in their buying journey. And so then lastly, that marketing plan is like at a simple, just simply, what are we going to do month on month? Okay, we're going to host a live event, exactly like what I'm doing, once a month with our subject matter expert, and they are going to provide loads and loads of value to our existing clients, our prospective clients. We're going to solve live problems for them. We're going to talk to them about things they actually care about. Be really careful about the bear trap of finding something that your target customer is just interested in general. Like if I just talk to you about some area of marketing that you're interested in, you might find this session valuable, but it wouldn't be positioning me as a person that you could trust to help you make decisions about your marketing, which is ultimately what my business is about. And so then think about how you can turn that into content. So for example, this is being recorded, it's going to go onto YouTube, onto my podcast. I'm also live on TikTok, and then I'll take the sections of this, chunk them down and send them out as, digestible short form content. This sounds a little bit scary, but with a marketing plan, it's all laid out. This is what we're doing and when. These are the topics. We spoke to our customers. This is what they care about, and this is what we're doing. And we're sticking to it for at least 6 to 9 months. And we are not going to change the plan until we've really seen this through. And then by not spreading your resources so thin across so many areas, you find that you can get results and that low hanging fruit. This is where the CRM and data plan, so many companies I speak to, they get really fast results by simply re-engaging all these hundreds of contacts that they are ignoring. And so just before we go into question time, I just want to leave this with you. This is a great example of brand positioning. And so for those of you on TikTok, this is an advert, a Fisher Price ad with a little boy. I'll find a way to share it with you guys. Sorry, didn't think this through. There's a kid standing up and a big space next to him. So it says, which one of these kids is wearing Fisher Price anti-slip roller skates? So if you're like me, it took me a minute to work it out, but basically 2 of the kids have fallen over because they're not wearing the product. What this has done is they're not targeting children, targeting parents. The pain point with the parents is, I want my child to be safe. And the fear is, what if my child falls over and hurts themselves? This advert is so incredibly clever because it's saying, look, if you don't buy from us, you're putting your kid in danger. Now, it's a bit morbid, isn't it? But really, most companies just say, hey, we're really good, come over here. But they don't do anything to say, actually, the other options are potentially dangerous. You could be going down a bad track if you don't work with us. Here's how we're better fixed to solve your problems than the other options available. So I really encourage you to research and look into brand positioning. Now, marketing success tip number 1, create materials to support the whole buying process. Sit down with the sales team, get marketing and sales on the same team, get them working together. Make sure that you have all of the materials that are going to be needed throughout that whole buyer journey. So what are we going to use at awareness when people have never heard of us? Like for me, that's my TikTok and my LinkedIn posts, and then it directs them to a podcast where there's a lot more detail. Because I'm a small business and I can see how things shape over time and I can look at individual people, it goes, okay, they've seen a post on LinkedIn, they've joined one of my Zoom events I hold monthly, they've then listened to the podcast episodes, they've built trust and confidence in me. And when I get inquiries, it's literally, hi Jade, when can I book in? Or even they just click the link and book in because the trust and confidence has already been built. And it's doing this mass consulting approach. So rather than me having hundreds of unpaid discussions with companies for them to find out if they want to work with me or not, they simply hop onto one of my events and they get everything they need there. They can ask me the questions they have. And it's this new model of marketing driving awareness. So I have never done cold outbound in my marketing strategy. I have only ever, as a small business owner, ever had inbound inquiries that are high quality. And those materials across the buyer journey, it's like, what is going to be needed to support someone through their journey? Like, is it podcasts when they're not aware of us? the LinkedIn posts, maybe some sponsored content. What's our strategy for that? When they are getting closer and they have a problem, maybe we have some kind of ebook that gives them some genuine help with the problem, like selfless help. Then maybe when they get further into understanding us as a company, we've got like brochures that are not just here's our service, here's some projects, but more getting that brand positioning across. So if you don't have clear brand position, it's going to be really difficult to set yourselves apart in your marketing materials, because you need to be able to define, like, here's why the solution that we have for you, here's all the proof that that is going to be the best for you over the other options. Tip number 2, and then we get to questions, getting marketing and sales on the same page. Usually the reason that marketing and sales hate each other is that sales are like, why are you sending me such rubbish leads? They're useless. I don't have any value for them. You're targeting the wrong people. And marketing are going, hey, why aren't you calling my leads back? Why aren't you getting results from what I'm sending you? And they just like loggerheads. But if the CEO of a company can buy into an overall strategy for the whole company about here's how we grow, here's what we're doing to attract demand, to get customers, and then aligns sales and marketing with that in a shared success format, as sales understand the role that marketing plays and the same. And marketers can start to learn to be able to speak to a finance director about the pipeline and about the numbers, and not just be stuck in their bubble. That's going to be really important. So if you're I have companies ring me and say, hey, I want leads now, and I'm like, I'm not the person for you, because if you've got short-sighted quick win in your mind, I'm not going to be the partner for you. I can tell you lead generation strategies. I can tell you, if you aren't focused on long-term sustainable growth, you're forever going to be in a hamster wheel, and you're going to be spending so much time in business development yourself, you're not going to be able to keep up, and you're working a ridiculous amount of hours. As soon as marketing takes the role of, we'll attract demand and get inquiries and get interest, that's when things start to work. But we have to have the confidence to really let that take effect. The reason that we don't have the confidence for this is that we're looking to our junior marketers to come up with strategies, but they're not equipped to do that. So again, there's this gap. Number 3, use customer insight to lead the strategy. I'm sorry, but finance directors, they're stuck in Excel spreadsheets. They are so vital to the company, but they're not close to customers. They're not building decisions around customers. And this is where marketing comes into its own. We are the innovators. We're the ones who go, but what is the problem here? I heard an amazing quote from a guy called Rory Sutherland the other day. It said, most business questions that we ask, when you really break them down, when you really drill into them, all of them are basically saying, what's really going on here? Like, what is actually the problem? And I think marketers can be the people who lead this, who stop us going into these meetings and just talking about stuff and going, hang on, let's bring it back to the customer. What do our customers want? What do they care about? And how can we best meet those needs? And then the last thing I wanted to leave us with today was just really create a culture among the whole company. This is the role of the business owner and the CEO, is to seek the expertise that you need in order to come up with your growth strategy, and then find ways to get everyone in your company on board with that, so that you don't have this culture in the boardroom. The CFO wants this and the marketing person wants this, and you're tending to be on the side of sales because they are the ones who actually bring work in. But when there are more efficient ways to grow than the traditional business development, they need to be explored. So we are going to hop into questions now. Hey, Lucy, it's nice to see you on TikTok. So anything that you have as a question in relation to your company's marketing strategy, or your challenges as a marketing person, this is your chance to basically get free consulting advice. Hey, Destiny.
So I work with a lot of small business owners, and a lot of the times they don't fully understand or know or have decided who their target audience is. I ask all the right questions, but a lot of times, everyone, everywhere, I don't know how to strategize for that.
So you're saying that the issue is that they don't understand their end audience, like who their audience is and how to reach them?
Yes.
They will need to do some work on user persona, interviewing existing clients and understanding from existing ideal clients. So maybe get them to speak to 10 existing clients to find out what they care about, why they look like working with the company. So they can really start to profile who their ideal client is, in the sense of who, a lot of the time in B2B marketing, we talk about like they're this age, these different demographics, these general interests. But what we really want to care about is like, how do we best meet their needs? I speak to companies who have an idea about who their ideal client is, but actually when we dig into it, we need to understand as well the data, like who's the most profitable type of client that they work with. So you can ask them questions like, could you look into your numbers and find out what type of projects, or just from your own knowledge, what type of projects are most effective in terms of profitable, in terms of easy to run, not pushing us outside comfort zones, really helping them to document their ideal client and what they want to, who they want to work with. Because some companies will say, oh, we want to go after these huge jobs, we want to be trusted with bigger pieces of work. But actually, it's like, but those are not aligned with the type of value you deliver. You're not pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. So it's also about looking at the offering too. Destiny, I would say maybe even trying to work on developing some templates to help them define their ideal client and what they care about, and then coming up with an overall content strategy. So what are they going to do to add value to their audience? Is it going to be a podcast? Is it going to be regular events? How are they going to provide value to their audience? And what is going to be the best strategy for them? And definitely always starting with nurturing who they already have. Hey, Corinne, how can I get more new relationships beyond sharing my lead magnet? The best piece of advice I can give is to have a very consistent, regular way to provide advice to our target audience and commit to it. For example, I am currently live on TikTok, and finding that place where you can regularly, consistently add value. So that could be that you host a live event every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock to answer people's questions. Because the thing with a lead magnet is that terminology suggests that by sharing a piece of content, that's all we need to do, in that, okay, we just give me your data and then you can have this, and what next? We need to kind of ungate things first. What can we do to provide value? How can we help as many people as possible without needing anything at all in return, as a super long-term strategy? For example, anyone who ever inquires, I'm like, yeah, why don't you jump onto my next clinic? I cover all of this. So rather than me spending like, because like now I guess we've had like 30 people in and out, and then there's people on TikTok too. If I were to speak individually to all those people, then it would be a lot of my time. So it's about finding ways to do mass consulting to then help people where they are, so that if they ever then do have a need for you, if they're not in the market right now, if they've got a need for someone like you, you're the first person they think of, and you're doing something that others in your market aren't. And I feel like using LinkedIn, using a podcast, having live events, I would say that 40% of the time I spend in my business is marketing. And that's the mindset shift. It's not a case like it used to be that we could put posts on Twitter and LinkedIn and then we'd get new relationships. But now it's that journey of like, where are we adding value? And it'll be things that feel like they're not working until they are. It can feel like wasted effort. It can feel like we're talking to nobody. I think the first few of these clinics that I did, I got like maybe 1 or 2 people on. And then for this one, I had 80 sign up. It's that consistency. And so I would say that given that you're a small business, it is about finding the best way for you to add value. And I really feel that podcasts are an area that are just so valuable for B2B companies. Like the role of webinars is just huge. And I think that a lot of the blocker for people on doing webinars is the confidence element. But if you can see that there's no difference running a webinar to just having a Zoom meeting with someone, there's no difference. Like if a director said, hey, could we have a call so you can talk to me about a challenge we've got with culture at the moment? It's only mindset that tells us that that's less scary than hosting a webinar every week. and getting people along and drumming up attention. And then every LinkedIn post you ever put out, it's like, hey, join me for the next whatever. Every email we send out is like, hey, join my next live clinic, whatever it is. Or you could also check out the podcast, and then every event that you host, you've recorded it so then it can go on to the podcast so people can listen at their leisure, and that's forms, because the email strategy needs to be like, here's something valuable for you. So today it wouldn't matter if 2 people showed up, because I'm recording this to get the value of the content. It's shifting our perception. I hope that's useful. Jess, how do you convince your leadership team to invest in solutions that will help marketing? It feels like a cycle sometimes. We need more leads before we invest in solutions versus initiatives failing because of poor systems, thinking of CRM in particular here. Yeah, so a lot of the time when I'm consulting with companies and helping marketers in the mentoring sessions, it's very much about making peace with the fact that companies will need to invest in the brand foundation basics before they can expect to see results. Now, that takes a certain level of confidence, because if I'm called to say, hey, I just want leads now, I'm not employed by them. So it's very easy for me to say, well, you're not going to get that because we need a new CRM and your website is not working properly and you have no brand positioning or messaging and you don't actually have the basics of your strategy set up. It's really educating yourself constantly so that you've got a better way to articulate to them, this is why we're not getting results, and this is what we need to do in order to get results. And it's not overnight, and we can do some quick wins if we get our data sorted on a new CRM and get it all set up properly. But I imagine, Jess, from what I know of you, because I already know you well ish, that you're being treated like what I call the marketing unicorn. And the marketing unicorn is like, we want you to do everything, be everything, have every specialism. We're not going to give you the budget that you need to achieve in your role. And we don't understand why you're not getting results, because we don't understand marketing and we don't understand you. And that's the key challenge. It's like helping them to learn that that's not how marketing works. If you're in a 1-person marketing department, your job will be to help them to mobilize a plan that's been created either by an external strategic marketer or with having hired senior marketing expertise into the business, because a junior marketer won't be resourced enough to develop that themselves. The best marketers are able to be assertive and curious and able to explore. So yeah, Jess, unfortunately, you are in the B2B marketing gap. This is the challenge. This is what I talk about. The B2B marketing gap is like, you are in a booby trap. What are you supposed to do? Like, they won't give you budget to deliver success, but they want success, but you don't know how to deliver success, and then you're not given the resources, and then it's your fault, and it's just this impossible scenario. So to break the cycle, I think you have already listened to the podcast, Jess, but have a listen to 4 skills every marketer needs on my podcast. I think it's episode 4. It really goes into a lot more detail on this. Helen, hi Jade, focuses on lead generation, strong conversion once our founder speaks with them, but need to get more calls scheduled, testing email, SEO, website. Any ideas on website CRO for B2B complex sale or strong alternative challenges? What I would say is, let's have a look. Testing email, SEO and website CRO, conversion rate optimization. Yeah, you want to be looking into less testing of loads of different channels and more, are we clear about our brand positioning? Do we know for sure that when people are landing on our pages as a result of SEO or any of the advertising we're doing or any of the emails, are we confident that we're hitting the nail on the head with the message and where they are in their journey? If we're researching something online and then we're just landed with this like, okay, buy from us, set up a demo, and they're like, whoa, I'm not interested. Your conversion rate optimization of your landing page is more about messaging and serving up what they need during that online research phase. So yeah, testing email. Again, are we talking to our list about things they care about? Are we adding value to their life? Are we expecting that they're going to convert into a sale? Like, is that our metric for our emails? I can email people for months and months and months, years and years. And then eventually all of a sudden it's like, hey, Jade, I've signed up for a session on the website. Here's some background, because they were in the market. So I think we need to change our relationship with what we view to be marketing success, because if we're literally just like, oh, unless we get a sale, like we sent out an email campaign, we got no leads, it's just too granular, the B2B decision-making process can be 6 to 12 months, and 85 to 95% people are not in the market at any one time anyway. So what can we do to really hit the nail on the head with messaging, with brand positioning, with being where they are? I'm glad to hear that the conversions are really strong when they speak to your founder. How is that going to scale? Is the founder always going to be able to take those calls? What's the long-term strategy for making sure that whoever's going to help the founder with that stuff, like what are they going to do? Strong alternative channels. I mean, I recommend for a company like yours that is really into these techniques is to provide value, like have a podcast, like with long form content that's solving challenges, providing value to people and giving something meaty for people to dive into. Because it sounds like if you've got a founder and you focus on lead generation, maybe you want to do a bit more to like encourage interest in how you solve problems, so that when they're in the market, they are wanting to talk to you. For example, my strategy is I have these live events. I'll post them on the podcast, and there's people in the background constantly listening to my stuff. And then I closed a £70,000, £80,000 deal from a tweet. Someone had been following me on Twitter for quite a while. They'd been liking, I think over 12 months, and maybe like 6 tweets. Then 3 months later, they connected me on LinkedIn. I'm thinking, oh, okay. And so then this final tweet, I was just tweeting about this event, and they tagged their CEO. And then the CEO got in contact, was like, hey, I've booked a session. I want to buy a bundle of 10 of your power hours for you to give some clarity. And then I set up the partnerships. I work with an agency where they do like fully outsourced marketing department solutions. So they didn't have to worry about their marketing. And yeah, that deal closed recently. And literally it came from a tweet. And I've been on Twitter for 12 years. I wouldn't say, oh, I'm going to post this tweet now because I would like to get a very large ticket deal. It just doesn't work like that. So I would definitely say, like, how can we focus less on testing channels themselves and more the messaging and adding loads of value? Hey, Mark, my biggest issue as a marketing manager is targeting a wider audience. We target a number of sectors and our messaging is confusing for the customer. This impacts planning and generating quality leads. The business doesn't know our ideal audience. So what can you suggest? Okay. So yeah, obviously the issue is you're trying to be everything to everyone. It's okay to be able to work with multiple sectors, but when we have limited resources, we probably want to do a bit of work digging into the data to find out, okay, what sectors do we have most success with? Is there something characteristically in common rather than sector specific? I understand that if your business does literally buy like that, like, okay, we're a hotel, and if you're going to build our hotels, like we need to know you've worked with hotels, but that comes further down in the sales journey, like that evidence, that proof perhaps. So I would say that I can't tell you how many audiences you'd have, but going through a strategic process to work that out with some research and insights, and then doing the brand positioning piece, which is at a top level, our brand, it solves this problem for these people. Here's why we're the better option over the other options available to you. And here is underneath that. So underneath your brand positioning, brand narrative, which most B2B companies do not have, that piece that says, here's why you should work with us, not the other options. And then underneath that, you have what's called the messaging hierarchy. So for each audience that we've defined, and as fewer is better, like you may need 8 audiences. I don't know. I could never consult you on that right now. But if you did need 4, and it has to be 4, and they are different and they don't have common things, then you can have messaging hierarchy. Here's how to tailor our narrative, and here's the proof points to use, and here's the case studies to share with those guys so that we can segment our marketing. So it does sound like a strategic issue. I hope that's useful. Helen, so just to follow up on Website CRO, we have simplified messaging to be clear what we offer, clear call to actions, covering the basics but still lacking results. It's really hard to say exactly what the issue is, but typically what I would find is that it is an oversimplification of how people buy. So sometimes we can be, and I'm not saying that you're doing this, Helen, by the way, but it's just for you something to think on. Sometimes, but we're doing email and we're doing SEO and we're doing this, but no one's converting. It could be an oversimplification of the process of how people buy. Perhaps they're not in the market. Perhaps we're catching them when they're researching, and just really looking at what we can do to get them into our pipeline at the right time. It would be good to know if you are definitely clear in your brand positioning Are you saying things to people that matter based on where they're at, and digging into those insights, but also using your knowledge of how your customers buy? Maybe you could ask, how do you buy services like ours? Where do you look for insights, and really starting to understand how you can better be there for clients. If you go to tambinimarketing.co.uk/events, all of the upcoming events on there, so you can just pre-register. It's in your diary and you can hop back in. And for those of you on TikTok, I'm here live on TikTok as well if you prefer that. I do need to start scheduling these lives so that you know when to expect me. For anyone who feels like they need a bit more help, you can always book in for a power hour. There's more info on my website on that, and we just dive straight into the issues you're facing. Thanks so much for being here.